Hello, I'm Trey McPherson. Welcome to Top City Today. With me is Dr. Tracy Ratsung. She is running for Topeka School Board District 2. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. Tell me about yourself.
All right, so I have been here in the district for the past several years. We actually chose our school prior to choosing our house. It's true. So I drove down after I accepted a position at Washburn and went through a little tour. We'd gone online and talked to people and talked to principals, and then just fell in love with the school. And I called my husband, who wasn't able to go down with me, and I said, good news, we found our school, but we don't have a place to live yet. So I'm taking a couple of extra months before we found that, but we narrowed our search to make sure that we were going to be able to attend the school that we wanted, which is of course here in USD 501. And that really started sort of my joy, or no, not joy, that really started my opportunity to get to know the district really well. So I've been an active volunteer for the past several years. So that means hundreds of hours, sometimes hundreds of hours a year, depending, especially when the kids were young. But I guess first I would say I'm a parent. So my kid is, right now I have one in high school, and I have one that graduated in 2017. And that active volunteerism is very much involved in the school district itself. So part of that means that it's in the classrooms. When the kids were young, it was giving hours so I could help the teachers with whatever they needed. It's out of the classroom. So in the elementary, that was everything from, I used to be the choreographer for the elementary and the school middle school musicals. I would go through and work with up to 70 kids on a stage meant for probably 40 and get them to do whatever it was. I took over the yearbook, so we did everything from production to design to marketing to distributing, and that would mean going in and making sure that every kid that was at the school that was legally able to have their photo, that's different, was in that yearbook as much as we possibly could. So then I created a lot of committees while the kids were young, so we created a yearbook committee so the kids get to know that process. So I don't know how many elementary school kids have the opportunity to take pictures and figure out how to frame and format, but those kids did. So once they get a little bit older, of course, your way that you volunteer adapts. So you change things out a little bit. And it was still in the school every once in a while, but most of it was out of the school, especially in middle school. That's such, so whether it was driving or helped with an Egyptian room that's over at Jardine. Ooh. Yeah, so helped paint the Egyptian and then motif, and then brought the kids down so that they could be writing their hieroglyphs on the walls, assuming that they had everything done and they were ready for that unit. And then at the high school, it's a lot of committee work, and it's a lot of work with outside groups, whether that's PTO or spirit wear. We were talking about the t-shirts earlier, so spirit wear or concessions. I'm sort of known as the hands, so whatever people need, whether I'm at that school or not. So when they needed me at the middle school, even though I was at the high school, I was there. When they needed me at the elementary school, even though my kids weren't there, I was there. So I think that's a big part of who I am. I think the other part, obviously, is that I do work. So I work outside the home. I work at Washburn University, so I am a professor there, professor of communication studies. So my degree is in interpersonal communication, so with specialties in health and family. And really, I've worked very, very hard to work on professional development. So I am one of, I'm trying to remember if the number was 5 or 6 faculty that have earned the Center for Teaching Excellence and Learning certificate for the past 5 years in a row. I'm one of 14 faculty that received the Inclusive Teaching Certificate through CTEL, which is the Center for Teaching and Excellence in Learning. And just constantly pushing myself to learn about teaching pedagogy, so how do we teach? Yes. So learn about how to be inclusive in your classrooms, how to think outside the box and be innovative in a time where maybe you don't have the ability to have a lot of money thrown at you. But a lot of it is talking about how do we help educators. So I was a teaching fellow, which means that I was asked to come in and at first I helped with programming, either active learning, so kind of the concept of flipped classrooms. Oh. So being active in the classroom, we know that straight lecturing doesn't always engage a student and also doesn't always help them learn the material. And so how do we engage students more in the classroom? So I also worked with diversity in the classroom. So again, so that concept of knowing who we have in the classroom and the needs that they're going to have. So then I moved to a thing called teaching observations. So a lot of time we know that either at the high school or the school level or even at the university level, it's really important to get feedback from your peers. So teaching observations, they used to call them teaching evaluations.
Oh, yeah.
I like to take that out and kind of go through the concept that we wanted this open door policy where teachers feel comfortable talking to other teachers about problems that they have in the classroom, issues that might arise, or just the joys, the things that are really working for them that maybe other people want to try. And so I took over the teaching consultation program and helped revamp that with another faculty member, and have now just spent hours and hours in other people's classrooms. And it's such an invigorating opportunity to watch some wonderful teaching happening. And I want to be able to bring some of that to the school board and to, as we talk about all the different areas of what does it take to stay in 501, and I think mentorship's a lot of that. So I want to be able to bring some of that with me. I'm trying to think if there's other things to talk about.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's that's a great introduction. I think it's really cool that you're getting teachers to work in a community
Right.
rather than just independently on their own. That's really valuable. Also, pedagogy is one of my favorite words. I like to trip people up. I ask them, oh, have you ever heard of that? It's the art of teaching. That's the definition. It's the art of teaching, or the profession of teaching. A lot of people don't know that. So,
Or andragogy, right? So the adult learner.
right, yes. So now I have to ask you, what specifically is driving you to run for the school board?
We are at a really exciting time. So we have 4 school board members running off from the school board that have been on for over a decade, and they have done some really amazing things. We also have the bond issue coming to the end and the strategic plan coming, where we have to revamp and redo the strategic plan.
Right.
So all of these things are coming in a moment where I think it's really essential to have a voice.
Right.
And I have a son right now at the high school, and what we do in the next few years could not just impact him, but impact his life in momentous ways. And so I think that it's really essential that members of the board not only want to be on the school board, but want to be there for the right reasons and want to be there with the students on their mind as the center focus. So I think what really drove me is it's the time. I've served for a decade on a group called the District Citizens Advisory Council, and that's DCAC. So you go through and you represent that through your schools. So I began in elementary school and have been on ever since. And with the District Citizens Advisory Council, that's the liaison group between the PTOs and the Burnett Center and the school board. And what that means is that we meet once a month, more often than that once we do subtopics and subcommittees, and we talk about issues. We get reports directly from the superintendent and board members. We get to learn about issues from food service to mental health issues. We ask the questions and they bring people in to help us answer them. And then of course the study topics that the board comes through and says, help us research topic, fill in the blank. And that's what we do for the course of the school year, is we'll go out and conduct research, parent support. So when we say write research, of course we're talking sort of that non-scientific data, because we're asking for individuals to participate that, we can't dictate who decides to fill out that survey or who decides to show up to a focus group. But through DCAC, you get a very clear lens about what's happening. You have opportunities to go and see different schools. So when I was the president of DCAC, we actually did what we call like a traveling group. So every month we actually went to one of the different schools. This is when some of the big K-8s were still being developed, so we got to go and see them firsthand amidst the architecture and amidst the design. We got to go through and tour some of the buildings, THS, so T-High, and I really remember going to see the Eisenhower connection. But as you serve on that committee, at the end you make recommendations. So you go through and you put forth, and so when I serve, I always try to make the recommendations go to, I call them no cost. So here are things that we can just implement. Low cost, midway, and then sort of, if we could have anything on earth, this is what we'd like to do related to this topic. So that means that for the past decade-ish, I've been putting forth committees with DCAC. And the board has been really good about reading those and listening to us present and then implementing. But there's only so much time that you can serve, that you can go through and say, here are the ideas that we have, and this is the perfect opportunity for me to be stepping up and saying, now it's my turn to be on the other side and receiving these and implementing these. So I think that it was all of this wonderful, if you can imagine the Venn diagram, all these events happened that I just think it's the time. It's time for me to step up and try for this role.
So now we have to get to the meat and potatoes of the interview. What are the top 3 issues that you want to work on when you're on the school board?
So I think the first thing that I think about is that it can never be one big issue, because I believe that all of the issues become interconnected. So when I visualize being on the school board, I imagine more about a puzzle, and you're trying to put the puzzle pieces together. And then if you take out any one piece of the puzzle, it's not going to be right or fixed, and maybe it's a bigger picture than that, because you're constantly adding to the puzzle and the complexity of it, but that it's really important. But I do think that there are some issues that we're going to be having to think about, especially with the strategic plan, as we start rethinking about and redeveloping that. And then just knowing the student base that we have coming through. So again, they're a little wide scoped. We'll start out with readiness, opportunity, and support. So readiness can be broken down into a few different key components. So certainly preschool is where we're going to have to really be focusing. We know that the advantages of K through 5, so birth through 5, and that really stem from having preschool services, whether it's learning how to use a pair of scissors or just learning how to behave in a group of other little bodies, little people surrounding you. And so we have the Shaner Education Center. I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to see that.
I personally haven't, but I've heard about it.
Right. It's a beautiful facility. And so as people learn about it, I do believe that we'll see more growth in there, and some of our other facilities as well. But there's still more to be done. I think people still need to realize that regardless of their pay scale, their child could have access to preschool education, and should have access to preschool education, because the benefits are long, long beyond what you're going to grasp for being 3 and 4 years old. But readiness is also about college career readiness, and we hear those terms a lot. Not all students are going to go to college. Not all students are going to go to a technical program. Some of them are going straight into the job workforce. Some of them are going to the military. And so it's really finding that path for that student, not shutting down other doors. I think that's really important to note, keeping the doors open for them to recognize, because they're young, that they might change their mind, but helping them build the skills that they need to be successful in a wide range of programs, whether that be getting them connected with Washburn Tech, which as long as they're in high school, they can be accessing Washburn Tech for tuition free. So then they just pay for, I shouldn't say just, they pay for the supplies, the books and supplies that go along with that. But there's an opportunity there for a wide range of skills, including the opportunity then also at TCalc. So TCalc and Washburn Tech, 2 different things, but the program at TCalc also allows for a wide range of skills. I'm specifically thinking about the robotics, where when we think of robotics, we might think of creating little robots or whatever the case may be, but if you've gone through in TCalc, they have that robotics unit that has the mechanical arms that you use in manufacturing plants.
Right. Yeah.
And so those students that are part of that program are going to have the opportunity to start at a higher pay scale and start at higher paying wages, higher paying jobs. And I don't know that students know that. I think when they're thinking robotics, they're still thinking of playing with robots or designing robots, which is less play. But I kind of believe that all learning is play, right? So the readiness portion, whether it's TCalc or whether it is Washburn Tech, or whether it's our AP classes, which right now the 3 different schools have very different opportunities. But I think that's where you have to be a little innovative, and I know that we've been in discussion about how we could actually be more innovative to even those out a little bit. And then you have your concurrent enrollment program, and those are the dual credits. So being able to take college level classes while you're at the high school. And again, we have a wide range from Topeka West to Topeka High, to Highland Park about what we're allowed to offer or can offer because of just requirements for what our teachers need to be able to do and what classes we can offer. So readiness goes kind of the big scale, right? So in opportunities, that can be anything from the arts. I'm pretty passionate about the arts. For both my kids, I think that the arts made them love school, made them want to attend. They're both pretty academically inclined, but to love what you do and to be passionate about going day after day, I think the arts add that, whether it's choir or theater or drawing or band programs. So making sure that we continue to fund those arts, especially when times get tough in the budget. But it also could be opportunities of other sorts. So combining or looking at our STEM or STEAM programs, the difference of course there is the arts. So looking at our science and math programs, looking at the College Prep Academy, which is now being housed in TCalc, and how do we expand that out so more students have the opportunities of individualized education. So I think that it's a fantastic opportunity. I don't know how much you know about College Prep, but right now it's such a small group that get to participate. And at the last board meeting that I attended, they were talking about how the TCalc building is actually being very underutilized, about 25% at capacity right now. And I think by expanding these programs out, we increase obviously its utilization, but I think that opportunity for individualized education is extraordinarily important. But also it could be opportunities as well right now in the way we do anything for a type of identification. So there was a discussion I had with someone about gifted identification. So how do we identify gifted students? Well, that certainly leads to opportunities, whether it's in the elementary school going off one day a week to another facility where you get to do some amazing other additional projects, or as you get a little bit older, you're getting mapped into those AP and CEP classes. But we know that there is a gap in how people are identified for gifted. And so there's a lot of disparity going on with that. So, and then the last one, I guess, all sort of ties that in together, and that's the support mechanisms, right? So we've had our readiness, we've had our opportunities, and the last one is support. Support for our teachers and support for our students. So we know that we have an issue with retaining
teachers, yeah. That's been a big topic recently.
It has been a huge topic, and it should be, because we know that if we want to continue having so right now, the last report said that we've closed the achievement gap. And I've seen other things that said we haven't quite gone there. It might depend on the school. I mean, there's all sorts of things. But we do know that teachers make a world of difference in how students view themselves, how students view schools, and we have to find a way to support our teachers and find out why they're leaving. And I don't think the answer is simple, but I think it has to do with we've got to start listening and listening closer. So retaining and recruiting quality teachers, and then supporting them once they're here. So whether that be sort of what I was talking about before through mentoring programs and helping observations where they don't feel like they're being evaluated, but they're being supported, and helping them find other mentors in the district that are there to help them out and make sure that they understand their classroom or understand the building dynamics and culture or whatever else they might need, understanding Topeka, So the other part of that, student services, right? So student support. So currently we've done, I think, a good job starting to initialize getting social workers into the buildings, getting more counselors into the buildings. But we have a really large population of students that have mental health needs, and we need to find additional mechanisms and put them in place to help these students beyond the 9-month classroom.
Right.
So that when they go out for the summer, they're not being released to their own devices or from being supported through different services and having those services cut off. So I think that might look like a wide range of things. But those are, I'll say 3, readiness, opportunities, and support.
Well, I mean, that's a very detailed answer. Not bad. Don't worry about long answers.
Yeah.
We love long answers here. I and everybody else wants to know what you have to say. So that's extremely important. Our next question is about school safety. In the current climate, we've heard a lot about school safety. In general, what are your thoughts on that topic?
Okay, I think when we think about school safety, we need to break it into three components. Apparently, this is the day of the threes, right? So I think that the first one that we might not think about with school safety would be climate and weather. So the bond issue allowed for the buildings to now have the secure weather shelters. Those have all been, I think, completed all but one. There was just a report on that. I don't know if they're building another one or if that's in process, but the rest of them are there. So this gymnasium space, but they dual as storm shelters. So, Kansas, we have inclement weather, and now our students can be safe. They also put the film on the windows, so that would be protection against any type of projectile, whether it's weather or from other reasons. And they are, because of the savings that they had with the bond, so that they didn't spend all the money that the bond had allowed for, they're actually going to go through and increase the film that they're putting. They'd already done it once, so I think they're increasing the film that they're putting on those windows to protect them. So then you have the second part, which is the one I think that people fear the most, which is the intruder, right? Schools already have been doing a lot with this over the past few years. If you haven't visited a school, it probably looks very different than when most people went. So whether that is increased lighting around the buildings. So, we know that when kids arrive at school, and especially during the winter months, it's dark.
Right, yeah.
So having that lighting out there, having single entrance access. So in other words, even though there are buildings that have multiple points of entry, all students are supposed to arrive through one door, all volunteers, all visitors are supposed to arrive through a single door. They show ID, they sign their names, so that at any point in time, you should know every person that is in that building, which if you all of a sudden have to go to a secure campus, that's important to know. So they have the single access points. And a lot of it's just being in communication. So some of the increased video cameras, I know some of that's been increased in certain buildings. But having the people around the building be in communication with each other is pretty essential. Informing the students, but not terrifying the students. So what happens when scenarios are really important, so that we never ever have to use them, I hope, but so that if it ever occurs, they know what to do. And then making sure that they feel secure in their own responses. And then what I think is actually the most important is that insider component. And that's again, I think I've mentioned it once already, the mental health. So making sure those buildings are safe for our students internally. So whether it's by actually utilizing the bullying policies that we have and making sure that our students feel comfortable in their own classrooms, it could be making sure that they have access to counselors, and that we teach people really how to identify students in crisis, and that a lot of times when students act out, or sometimes it's the opposite, right, when they retreat into themselves, that they're really needing someone to reach out to them. And so when you have a classroom of close to 40 students, that could be difficult. But how do we identify these students that need help before it becomes a crisis moment? And so to me, I think when we look at school safety, those are the major three components that we need to be thinking about.
Earlier, you mentioned your role on the district advisory board with 501. What other leadership experiences have you had that you find have affected you the most?
All right. Well, through USD 501, so on DCAC, I've served as both as the secretary, the vice president, and the president. So, but I've also, that means that since it's the liaison group, that I've been part of PTOs. And PTOs, I've been also secretary, vice president, and president. Sometimes at two different PTOs at once, and sometimes two different PTOs at once at the same time of having a leadership role on DCAC.
Wow, busy schedule.
Yes. I mean, so I think that's part of it too, so that it's about learning how to be organized and learning how to figure out and attend to the needs that you have. Obviously, that gets you part of the way, but I've served on a lot of other committees and committee chairs. So at Topeka High, it's everything from spiritware and concessions. I participated as the game room chair for after prom. I mean, so just the wide range. And I spoke earlier a little bit about elementary school and middle school. So at my university, I have a lot of leadership roles. I've served as the chair of my department for a few years. I'm currently an assistant dean in the College of Arts and Sciences. And so a lot of that, you learn everything from looking at budgets, making hard decisions, looking at conflict and how to work around conflict, or understanding that it's necessary sometimes to have conflict. It can be just a wide range of things that you have to figure out and negotiate for yourself. How do I have time to do all of these components that I think are really important to do. So the leadership roles certainly help with those endeavors.
All right. Well, the last question that I have for you, and it's something we've been asking all of our candidates, it's my favorite question. It gets the most interesting answer. What is your favorite thing about campaigning?
So far, my favorite thing has actually been the opportunity. I really have enjoyed chatting one-on-one with people. So I come by that sort of by nature anyway, I guess probably because of my background. But I really like to know what other people's interests are. So one of my favorite questions to ask, what would you do if you were a part of the school board? What are your interests? And from things like that, that's how you learn about what's happening. So I receive messages from teachers that are saying, here's my issue, please talk about, or just as you're knocking door to door. So things like the bullying policies of Topeka High, and not just Topeka High, USD 501, stemmed from a question when I knocked on the door. Someone said, my child experienced bullying at school, fill in the blank, what would be done about that? And so it got me really thinking about what is our bullying policy, and is it a policy problem, or is it an implementation problem, or is it something altogether different? Or talking to individuals that require some kind of special services, whether it's a 504 plan or an IEP. And so then starting to look up the facts and knowing that Kansas is 19th on the increased suicide rates, and that we've had a 50% increase in teenage suicide in the last year, and looking at projects that how do we go through and support our students and help them help figure out why that's the case, help figure out and then do something about it, because that number is extraordinary. But it could also be looking at some individuals were talking about gifted education, and how can we design and implement programs for students that allow for individualization, whether or not they have necessarily a gifted identifier. And I think that these are the things that I enjoy. I enjoy those conversations. I enjoy learning about my district more than I had in the past. I enjoy when people reach out and talk to me, and because they trust that I will listen to them. And so I've really enjoyed that part.
Well, that's very exciting, and I have to thank you for coming on our program today.
Thank you.
It's been a great time talking with you, and it's been great having you here along for our conversation. Tracy Routsong is running for Topeka 501 School Board District 2, and she will be on the ballot along with other people. You can find out more about her campaign. You have a website, don't you, I think?
Facebook link.
Yeah, Facebook. She's on Facebook. And you can also find other campaign related information here on our Facebook page, Top City Today, and you can like and share this video with your friends and family. And until next time, I'm Trey McPherson for Top City Today. Goodbye. Hello, I'm Trey McPherson. Welcome to Top City Today. I have with me Tracy Routsong. She is running for Topeka 501 School Board District 2. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you.
So tell us about yourself.
I am a Topeka High parent. So my son is in high school. My daughter graduated in 2017. And I'm a very active volunteer in USD 501. So I volunteer over 100 hours per year since I've been here. I work at Washburn University. I'm a professor of communication studies, where I have the opportunity to look at relationships, which is interpersonal communication, health and family. And I am really looking forward to the opportunity to help build and establish change at the school board.
What is driving you to run for school board?
We are at an extraordinarily unique time right now. We have 4 members rotating off that have been on for over a decade. We are coming to the end of a strategic plan, and we're also coming to the end of a bond issue. We have all of these things happening. At the same time, I've served on the District Citizens Advisory Council for close to a decade. And during all of that time, we've been implementing or making considerations and suggestions. And with all of these other things coming in, I just felt it was time for me to step onto the other side of those decision-making processes. So instead of making suggestions to the board, which is what District Citizens Advisory Council does, it's the liaison between the PTO and the Burnett Center, the school board, I want to be one of the change makers.
That's good. Great. Thank you. For the meat and potatoes of this, what are the top 3 issues that you're considering when you get onto the school board?
So I see this as a bigger issue than any 1, 2, or 3 issue. I want you to picture this as a large, maybe not a puzzle because that makes it sound like there's a beginning and end, but I think that there are all these interconnecting pieces that are pretty essential. But if I had to go through and say, let me talk about 3 things, I'm going to talk a little bit about readiness, opportunities, and support. So readiness goes everything from preschool readiness and making sure that our students have access to preschools and that they recognize that we have preschools all across our district with a number of fee scales and opportunities for these students because that's essential. But it's also readiness for our students that are getting ready, whether they're in middle school or starting in high school or at the end of their high school career, and making sure that they have the support mechanisms in place, whether it's academic rigor in those AP and CEP courses to make sure that they are ready, or if it is going through and looking at some of the other mechanisms in place to make sure that they're ready for a career and using things like TCalc. Opportunities goes back to the TCalc, the College Prep Academy, and making sure that all students recognize what opportunities that they have, that they can take classes at Washburn Tech, that they can take college courses that are meant for that. And then the last one is support mechanisms. So we support for our teachers. We need to be recruiting and retaining quality teachers and then keeping them, finding out what's going on about why we're losing folks and really listening to them. And then the support mechanisms for our students and making sure that their mental health and their physical health needs are being met.
And something that we're asking all of the people running for office, what is your favorite thing about campaigning?
My favorite thing has been meeting one-on-one with the folks around the district, learning about what they're interested in. I could talk education forever, and so really learning about what is their driving force has been really fascinating to me.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming on our program
Great.
today, Tracy. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure talking with you, and thank you for watching our program today. This has been a shorter version of a longer interview I had with Tracy earlier today. You can watch that here on our Facebook page. You can also like and share this video here with your friends and family, and let them know that there's other videos of other local politicians right here in our neck of the woods. So join me next time on Top City Today. I'm Trey McPherson. Goodbye for now.